Dolphin House, just outside the Temple Bar area, is an interesting looking building. And as we come out of Parliament Street, some great frescoes on that building. And we look over, yes, it's the Liffey. We're heading, there's Capel Street Bridge. And then as we look down, aside from the airport buses coming up, blocking the view, you can see in the distance what used to be Dublin's solitary skyscraper, Liberty Hall, which is now occupied by all the far lefty unions and all the rest of, well, the National Union of Journalists and all that. They all used to be there. I don't know if they still are. And there we go, your first view of the Liffey. Rather iconic view. I don't know why I'm dwelling, because everybody's seen this. And at roughly 1 o'clock, the forecourts, which are being renovated. Grattan House. And the Giddy Dolphin is housed in this quite interesting building. And beside the Giddy Dolphin, we have, sorry for the van, we have Bono's Plaything, or as it's formerly known, the Clarence Hotel. We're just on Wellington Quay, which was named after my former gardening shoes. No, just kidding, Duke of Wellington. It marks the start of the Temple Bar area, which many years ago was just old bonded warehouses, worn out, but it's now become central yuppieville for Dublin. Let's go and have a look. They certainly tell you everywhere it's Temple Bar, making sure you know it's Temple Bar. Just to be sure, yes, it is Temple Bar. Yes, this is most definitely Temple Bar. You can't get away from it. You can even trade in your Temple Bar for somebody else's Temple Bar if you like. And just what every Temple Bar needs. Yuck. And some of the old bond houses that have become now popular, hip and with it, eating and drinking establishments. And this is one of the original actual bars, complete with nice welcoming messages. No entry, toilets for customers only, strictly over 21, neat dress essential. You really just won't believe how dead this was. So 40 years ago, it was just absolutely nothing here. And as we come out of Temple Bar, I'm not going to go all the way down, just have a look at pub after pub after pub, but it must be worth having a look at the brutalism that is the central bank. They actually paid somebody to design that. And at the top there is Dame Street, where we were wandering along earlier. Just taking a look at the back of Bloom's Hotel. Judging by the murals all over it, it's not the 5-star plus establishment it was all those years ago. And here's the front of Bloom's Hotel, and of course it's Bloom's and Joyce and all that celebratory type of stuff. I have a suspicion it's definitely not what it was when I went to the opening of it how long ago was that? Crikey, must be 45 years ago, 45 years ago, because it was very upmarket. I should mention, as I stand here getting soaked outside Bloom's Hotel, that I went to the opening in my capacity as the features editor of a social magazine, and it was one heck of a knees up. There were 7 different sets of cutlery surrounding each plate, and silver plate service nothing like, and it was just a wonderful event. I won't go into details, it being hedonistic Ireland in the very early 80s. And then we wander back down the middle. This is a street that goes back onto Temple Bar, but it's just so nice and colourful, it's worth having a look at. And plenty of, as we've said in other videos, plenty of murals. Of course, Dublin is the city where real traditional Dublin people would call them murals, even though they've nothing to do with Paul Muriel. And the old, as you can see, the old storehouse turned into an establishment for, hey, Guinness. I'm keeping away from that. A few too many last night. Well, I didn't actually, it's just two is a few too many for me nowadays. It's an age thing. And then we're coming up to a very famous part of the city that juts out and goes on over the Liffey. As I mentioned, Temple Bar continues up there, but here we come. Very famous part. This is called Merchant's Arch. And as expected of somewhere where you're calling it Merchant's Arch, there is indeed an arch. And there it is. It's got its own bespoke pub that has been here for years, but the actual Merchant's Arch itself, I mean, in a nutshell, all those hundreds of years, it was, in essence, an arch for merchants. That was it. But very, very famous. As we exit the famous Merchant's Arch, it connects with the even more famous Halfpenny Bridge that you've seen in all the movies from the Gangs of Dublin and the series and Mrs. Brown's Boys. Always some sort of chase over it at some stage. A little touristy thing of some description doing its rounds down the Liffey. Has to be low slung so it can get under the bridges, and you can just see in the distance the very famous O'Connell Bridge. Right, let's video walking across the Halfpenny Bridge. I don't know if they used to charge a halfpenny for it. I've never looked up the history of that. I don't really know where that comes from. Halfpenny being half penny to those of you who otherwise wonder what a halfpenny is. And the view of the Liffey that away. And then we'll come back and take a view of the Liffey that away. And we'll continue across the Halfpenny Bridge. It's not a particularly long walk. And the lovely thing is, if we look over on the quayside, you can see all the original architecture has been maintained. Yes, there might have been a paint job, but that's on both sides. Not too many modern Leviathans built. Put some information plaques about the Halfpenny Bridge very unceremoniously behind bins. And the other bin on the other side, unceremoniously put behind there, not giving any information about the actual bridge itself. And now we'll have a walk by the side of the Liffey on one of these walkways that was placed over the river itself many years ago, leaving the Halfpenny Bridge behind us and heading off towards O'Connell Bridge. And this is the walkway over the river. You can see the original wall is there, and then we've got this here and the river. And what a lovely day it is today as well, with some of the seagulls doing some shopping for other people's food. The size of these buggers, and they've got no fear whatsoever, except with one another. I don't know why they screech, because surely if you keep shush, it doesn't alert your fellow seagulls to the fact there's food around. And we're now on the famed O'Connell Bridge, which is rather unique in as much as it is actually as wide as it's long. And it leads to O'Connell Street, and presumably that's Mr. O'Connell there with his lovely hairdo. Care of Pigeons R Us. And just down roughly in the centre there is the general post office. We'll go and have a wander and see if we can find the bullet holes from the 1916 rising. On one side of O'Connell Street, the emporium that was Cleary's, actually probably still is, which was a little bit of a, I suppose, and I don't want to knock it, but a downmarket Selfridges and similar style building, and that's opposite the Central Post Office, one of the most iconic buildings. And there it is in all its glory, the Central Post Office. Look a bit more detail of the post office. It's, or the GPO should I say. It's very difficult to do it from this side when one's not got a particularly reasonable camera. But that's it. I was looking for the bullet holes, but I can't find any. A helpful local told me he thought these were some of them, but I don't know. Not too sure about that. Yes, revealed by a lovely Jehovah's Witness gentleman standing down below, handing out leaflets. There's some of the real bullet holes from 1916. We've just nipped inside into the General Post Office. Can't take a picture of the counters, which is understandable, but this is the very famous General Post Office from the inside. And nice bit of detail in the roof. And there we go. We're just off O'Connell Street, Bachelor's Way, and this gives you an idea of how Temple Bar used to look before it became Temple Bar-ish, and that's across the other side of the river. You can see bond houses and warehouses and that sort of thing. And that is how Temple Bar used to be. This isn't Temple Bar, by the way, this is called North Lots, but it's parallel to Temple Bar, which is on the other side of the river. And what a change from this to Temple Bar. I'm sure it won't take too long till this catches up. Not in my lifetime, though. I know we're back on bars again, but I'll mention this for a particular reason. If you bear with me a moment. The reason I mention the Oval is that we're on Abbey Street, which is just off O'Connell Street, and this now looks like unused building was the home of independent newspapers, which was the Sunday Independent, the Irish Independent, and the Evening Herald, one of Dublin's evening newspapers. And we used to all pile into the Oval, even despite the fact that I only worked at the papers just occasionally subbing, which means doing articles and never getting your name on the bottom because somebody else took them. And beside it, we'll just have a look to show you, not many people realise, is the back entrance to Primark. It still kept the old name Pennies because just like Ryanair, Primark started here in Ireland. Talking of the independent newspaper, and a year behind me at school was a gentleman called Dennis O'Brien. Google him. He had a period where the poor man was only Ireland's richest man. He actually bought the independent newspaper group at one stage. So I'm not too sure what the situation now is, to be quite honest. I'm not going to wander into Pennies. I mean, a Primark is a Primark wherever you go. And I'll only end up buying stuff that I don't need and I don't even want. So that's it. This is Eason's, the equivalent of W.H. Smith's, but the Irish version. This shop's been here as long as I can remember, probably since the date it claimed, on this very spot. And then, as I say, there's the big Primark beside it that just happens to call itself a Pennies under its original name. Nothing to do with J.C. Penney in the United States, I might add. We seem to have a time conflict at Eason's. Facing one direction it's 10 to 11 and facing the other it's nearly 5 past, or just gone 5 past. Now opposite the Central Post Office there used to be, on this, you can see this metal thing here, there used to be a Nelson's column you could actually climb up, and that was blown up in 1966 by those lovely gentlemen of the Sinn Féinry IRA persuasion. And they put this thing up not too recently, I think, to celebrate the millennium. Just look at this thing pointing into the sky as if there's no tomorrow. I think it's fair to say that given there's the gangs of Dublin and other criminal things on, that this needle, as it's called, well, I won't mention heroin. Nothing, won't touch that. How wonderful, a traditional news vendor. Useless information part 2 is that O'Connell Street is the expensive yellow property on Monopoly, the Irish version, and North Earl Street here is one of the cheaper yellow properties. It's come back to life over the years. Just mentioned Earl Street with the pointy thing, and as I mentioned, that's opposite Henry Street, and this was one of the first of the pedestrianised streets, along with Grafton Street, which we had a quick look at yesterday. That's one of the main shopping areas. It's got what they call the ILAC centre down at the bottom, which is the Irish Life. Well, it's just a shopping mall thing. One pedestrianised shopping street is just like the other, but I've come down here for potentially Mrs. Brown's buys for a connection to Mrs. Brown, which I'll explain in 2 minutes if the connection is still here. And it is still here. It's the famous Moore Street Market, not what it used to be, but this is where a lot of, well, supposedly where Mrs. Brown and her family made their money, and of course the movie he was filmed there. And there it is. A little bit of a shadow of its former self. A little bit more organised with the little blue coverings. Another retail shopping institution, Arnott's. It's like a House of Fraser, but a solo version. Again, quite interested in the actual architecture of the building, which is still the original facade. You can see surrounding Arnott's is a lot of the original architecture. These tiles are very interesting. Everywhere you go, there are police on the beat. I think the UK needs to maybe take note. Mr. Starmer, are you listening? Well, that's an unusual form of advertising. Is this? Well, I don't know. You tell me. I'm so upset I came all the way down here to visit the fake House of Fragrances. And what do I find? Interestingly, just opposite is the ILAC Centre I was telling you about, which was much derided when it was first opened because it was, to quote His Majesty the King, a bit of a carbuncle. Actually, a lot of a carbuncle. Nothing really redeeming about that, but they do seem to be doing something about it. This architectural wonder is, believe it or not, wait for it, it's a Pennies, which I've just been told by a local they have rebranded Primark here in Dublin back to its original name of Pennies. This explains the excellence of this particular architectural non-eyesore that is Pennies. James Joyce, no less, managed it. I won't take a picture of him, but I have just been asked for some spare change, which I haven't got because I'm completely cashless this particular holiday. But I've just asked for spare change by somebody whom I've just passed back coming this way, and he's got a top-of-the-range blooming phone, a smartphone, and he's asking for change. And there you can see the pointy thing dominating the skyline. I'm still annoyed over that. I refuse to be drawn into commenting. Let's move on. Next. I think they might have gone too far beyond expectations because it seems to be a long way to yeah, I know. Okay, all right, I'll stop. I do like Father Matthew's new living hat. Meanwhile, back on O'Connell Street, I've been told that up there is the 10 Virgins. which somebody rather cruelly said, you'll never find 10 of those in Dublin. Just another view of O'Connell Street. The old Carlton Cinema seems to have become a casino. I imagine that must be quite a big casino because it's very large inside. Top end of O'Connell Street, and it's the rather resplendent Gresham Hotel, which has extended its reach towards the end here of the part of the road, with Toddy's Bar and Brasserie. And as we walk just round beside and behind the Gresham, we're moving into the, how can we explain it, one of the North Dublin areas, let's call it that. And again, you've probably seen these photographed in all the movies on TV and the detective series and the Gangs of Dublinsy type thing. It's very much more traditional part of Dublin and the former working class Dublin. This has been here for years now, donkey's years. When it was first opened many decades ago, it, how can we put it? It got on the wick. There's a good. It got on the wick of the Holy Joes. They got very, very upset. She looks like she's got an airplane in her hand and telling me, oh, you, Ed, you know where the airport is, leave. This is, or was, Cathal Brugha, which is the name of Poison, training college and centre, at least it used to be. And then very strangely here, just in the very centre of the road, where it parked a very, very small Anglican Episcopal church. Nice little pocket church. Just sitting here with North Dublin and the quays stretching that away. That's for anybody who may need to spell Cathal Brugha, should they be going on a TV quiz somewhere. Plainly, the clerics must now go a little bit more loosely dressed.